All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now I'm going to talk about the TJ Dillashaw fight. Cory Sandhagen was there too. Amazing fight. But I'm going to talk about this in a much broader sense because I realized on this channel I've been doing a lot of talking shit lately, you know? Like on my Instagram, which I encourage all of you guys to follow now because I talk there a lot. I've been doing a lot of posting there. But I put on there that I have a black belt in talking shit, which is true. But I think one thing that I haven't talked about recently is why I love this sport so much. Like why I love this sport so much. And I think the TJ Dillashaw and Cory Sandhagen fight is the perfect vehicle for me to talk through that for people who haven't been here since the beginning. Because I used to talk about this a lot when I was first starting. And here's the deal. You know what? Let me just disclaimer this. If you're looking for someone who's going to just like straight up break down the fight that you watched and talk about what was working and what wasn't, this is not the video for you. What I want to talk about is, again, why the sport is so incredible and why I'm so passionate about it and why people who watch the sport and really understand what's going on are also very passionate about it. And it really boils down to a couple things. It boils down to the humanity and it boils down to the stakes that are there in every single fight. But it's not even just the stakes. It's not even just what's at stake, or in terms of like the implications of victory and loss, which are enormous. But it's about validation of a person's entire life every single time they get in the octagon. Now, there are some fighters that build a very successful career and they kind of get to a place where basically no matter what happens, as long as they win a few, you know, if they got 8 fights left, they're like, I'll go 4-4 and I'll be fine. Very few fighters like that. And anyone who gets to that point goes through a number of fights that are the way that I'm about to describe them, uncountable, right? And those are the fights where you need to win. Like you have to win. You have to win. And the thing that you have to win is you need to get locked into a cage, a tiny enclosed space with a person who's been training to literally beat other humans to death their entire life. It's the only thing they've ever done, is train to kill. And that's all you've done too. And your life hinges on you successfully beating that person. And that's every fight, you know. Now, some fights are bigger than others, but all of them are huge. All of them. Every single one that's on one of these events is enormous, enormously important to the people that are in it. You know, you can have these situations where you got two guys they've been in the UFC for, you know, a year. They're like 1-1 in the UFC. Seems like it's kind of an innocuous, who cares fight. And I promise you, if you peel the layer back for those particular guys, what's actually going on is if I lose this fight, I just lost my last fight. You know, I won my first one, lost my second one. If I lose this fight, I'll be on a 2-fight skid, 3 fights into my UFC contract. And if I lose another one, I'll probably get cut. And if I get cut, let me think about this. How many people have ever come back to the UFC and had a successful career? Because basically my entire driving force throughout my life is I believed I could be a champion. Because anybody who's in the UFC, to be that good, they have to believe that that's what they're chasing. At least the very good ones thereafter being the best. I don't think there are very many people who train and while they're young, their vision is like, I want to be a middle of the road UFC fighter, right? Now, some people will act like, you know, they'll feel lucky to be there. But most people put a romanticism around the journey that they're on, if they're fighters, deservedly, whereby they're chasing a championship. And if you lose 2 in a row, you're facing elimination. And when we say elimination, we're talking about the death of your dream. Like the thing that has been the driving force behind every single day where you're just grinding in the gym, hitting pads, grappling, jiu-jitsu, painful days. You don't want to train, you keep going because you got a dream that you want to fulfill. And if you lose another fight now, right? So it's gone. Like the dream is over. Your life is over. When you're young like that, you can't go from a place where your dream is to be the #1 fighter in the world to, well, it's fine. You know, when I'm 45, I'll have some kids, I'll have a wife, and, you know, we'll be happy, right? We'll live in a place that we like. I'll probably pick up some hobbies and we'll have a great time. I mean, people can do that, But that is a very challenging transition for people. And that's another thing that I think is why I personally love the sport so much, is that I'm utterly deficient in a million things. Like people give me shit that all I talk about on here is, how I'm incredible at everything. And I do that. I'm on here talking shit. You guys understand that, right? Like you think that I'm unclear on what kind of communication mode we're in? Like I'm being Chael, when I'm talking to the camera, I mean what I say, but I'm being Chael Sonnen after a fight, okay? Like right now I'm talking to you man to man, and I am bordering on retarded in many categories of my life. But the thing that has always gotten me by is I understand people. I really, really do. And so I can watch someone, I can look at their situation, and I can feel the thing that they feel. Like I know what they're feeling just by looking at them. And I can put the pieces together where it's like 2-fight skid, trains out of that camp, wife, kid. I can see in their face whether or not they're financially stressed. I can just feel all of it. And so the implications of victory and loss, I can feel those too. And when people are overcoming adversity, like a situation like that, like they're facing the death of their dream and they're going to get locked in a cage and they're going to fight another man until one of them is unconscious to continue your dream, for glory or to lose it all. It's hard not to get emotional thinking about it when you really wrap your brain around it. Now, I'm not going to pretend like every single fight I get that, integrated into the experience every single time, because no one has room for that emotionally. But in the big ones, like the big ones, John Jones versus DC, Conor versus Khabib, Masvidal's journey back from going down to the jungle and turning off TV, turning off his phone, and then seeing what he needed to do to be successful, coming back and taking over the world. Darren Till's story, like, I just can't. Conor being on welfare, living with his mom, with a girlfriend that he was ultimately going to build a life with, quitting his job and just being like, and with coming out of Ireland with absolutely no indication, historical or otherwise, that he's going to be successful accomplishing this seemingly impossible dream. Francis fucking Ngannou, living in Africa, working in a sand mine in his mid-20s, decides he's going to go be the heavyweight champion of the world. He has no boxing experience. It's ludicrous. Like him doing all of the things that he did to get to where he is now. I mean, up to a certain point, once it started to become real, they were absurd. They were the actions of a crazy person to believe that he could accomplish what he did, and he did. And the fucking balls of that, man. The balls to put it all on the line. Now, I will certainly say that it's not like Francis had something that was valuable to hold on to where he was, but no one does. That's the thing that people don't get. No one does. When it's all said and done, and you've rolled the dice, and you've either won or you've lost in life, whether it's the fight or some other dream that a person had, like, if you roll the dice and lose, you didn't really lose. And that's the thing I had to learn by rolling the dice and losing. Like, all in, all my chips in. If I win, I have everything. Everything that I had, more than I could have ever imagined in my wildest dreams. And if I lose, I'm fucked. All in. 100% all in. And I lost. And throughout that process, the stakes that were there. Now, I'm literally not trying to plug this, but if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just go to my videos, list my videos, go to oldest, and then one of the first ones will be Jesse on Fire Startup. I need to remember to edit that or whatever. Anyway, and it's a documentary about what I'm talking about. And I went all in. Like, it's a startup that I built, and they did a documentary about it. And I lost. I don't need to get into the details. But the entire time that I was doing it, I was fully aware of the stakes. I was living the thing that grabs me about MMA every single day. I woke up and I was like, this is do or die. Every single day, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. And the thing is, I could tell, anytime anyone would talk to me, they're like, well, what if it doesn't work? I would be like, it's impossible. Like, I didn't think it was possible that it wouldn't work. I was that confident. I said this then, and I will say it again now. If I would have won the lottery and gotten $15 million, I'm sure now, like most people, you'd be like, okay, well, who cares what I do? I got $15 million. I'm done. Like, I'm just going to retire or whatever. 100%, absolutely, without a shred of doubt. Look in my eyes and you tell me if I'm being dramatic. 100%. If I won $15 million in the lottery, I would have invested every dollar of it into my company. That's how confident I was that it was going to work. And we're talking, and that I was going to turn it into a multi-billion-dollar company. The vision, you guys can watch the documentary if you want. And I thought if I didn't get there, it was the implications were, I couldn't even go there because it was too much to even imagine. And so when we lost, I survived. Of course, I was fine. I mean, it wasn't easy, but I rebuilt myself multiple times, actually. That wasn't the last time I lost. I lost again right after that, and then I rebuilt myself, and I'm not saying it like giving myself a hand job. I just did. Like, it's just a thing that I did. But I rolled the dice. I'm rolling the dice again now. Like that, I'm rolling the dice now with this channel and with my other project. I have a regular job, and my plans certainly are not long-term tied to that. Let's just put it like that. And you can't fucking lose if you roll the dice. I can't stress that enough to people. Now, I know we're way off of TJ and Sandhagen, but like I said, we're talking man to man now. So I'm just going to finish my thought. I promise we're going to get there. But if you roll the dice and you lose, like I said, you will survive. You'll survive. I promise you'll survive. You'll figure it out, dude. There are challenges for people who have kids. Like, when I had to rebuild, I had 3 kids. I'm not even going to get into the place that I was in 4 or 5 years ago, because it's for another day. But I can tell you there have been very few people that come from a background like mine that have ever faced adversity like I did. And I fucking beat it. I won. Now, I wouldn't wish that experience on my worst enemy. But the point is that, the low that I got to is because I rolled the dice. And of course I regretted it at the time. Like, when I was in the shit, helpless, like no options. Of course I regretted all of my decisions. But then I rebuilt myself, and now I don't. I don't regret them at all. And the point I'm making is, like, it takes fucking balls to do it. Like, you have to literally just throw caution to the wind if you want to really chase something that matters to you. And I'm not just talking about some like pipe dream. If you really know what you want, that's the only way that you can do it. If you really know what you want. If you know and you see a way forward, you fucking figure it out and you just do it. And I'm inspired by that stuff, Like, I haven't won yet. So I'm not putting myself in the category of the kinds of, but it's about the journey. It's about the decision to roll the dice. And it's about the pressure that you find yourself in if you have taken a choice like that. And it's not for everybody. It's really not. It's really not for everybody. Some people are completely happy with, a safety net, etc. Fighters are not in that category. Fighters are not in that category. They've rolled the dice. Like, they're going to fight their way to monetary gain that can support them forever, or they're going to lose. But one way or the other, this is the road they've chosen. Then there is no off-ramp. This is the road you're on. You're 27 years old. You're a professional fighter. You have no work experience because you've dedicated your entire life to martial arts. You're going to fucking fight your way to glory, or you're going to fucking lose. And you're going to have very few options. And the stakes, it's not just about the fight. It's about your fucking life. It's about their life. So that's how I look at the sport. And so when you take just that baseline of what this sport is and what every fight means, and then you add the additional layer on when there's really like heavy additional stuff on the line, and it's like, I wish that I could like ball it and then give it to everyone, like see it the way I see it, because I know that most people can't. Otherwise, every single person would have a fucking YouTube channel about it, or would like be so obsessive over the fights that like they couldn't get anything else done. I love it so much. It's like I haven't missed a fucking pay-per-view event since 2001. 20 years, dude. 20 fucking years. The first day I met my wife's mom, this is not a fucking, the first night I met my wife's mom, it was the night that George St. Pierre was fighting Matt Serra, the first one, when Matt Serra won. I was like, hi, I'm Jesse. I was in love with Gabrielle. I knew I was going to marry her if I could. First time I'm meeting her fucking family. And I literally was like, hi, I'm Jesse. So nice to meet you. Here's $50, $60, whatever it was. I'm going to go order a pay-per-view and watch some cage fights in your living room. So, and it was a throwaway fight. Everyone thought that Matt Serra had absolutely no chance in that fight. It was a no big deal card, but I wasn't going to miss it no matter what. I love it too much. But so if people can like see the sport like that, the way that I do, then you could start looking at some of these fights like, fuck. One of the reasons I don't usually do videos like this is that it's hard for me to even really talk about without sounding crazy. But like, I'll give you a couple examples, right? Actually, I'll tell you what. I'll give you an example real quick. So like, let's talk about Islam Makhachev, okay? So people are like, Islam Makhachev, what do you think he's going to do? Well, he hasn't fought anybody. He hasn't fought anybody. I don't know, like, we'll see what happens, yada, yada. Like, Khabib's his coach, so that's kind of exciting. Like, let's see what his ground game really translates to when he's fighting against like a really, really good grappler. Let's see how that goes. That's how most people look at it, okay? How I look at it is, this is a guy who was basically adopted by Khabib's dad, who's an absolute pinnacle of everything that is respected in their home country in Dagestan. And he adopted him, basically. Trained him since he was a child. And I have no idea what Islam's family life looks like. But I know people. And if you can try to understand how much gratitude he has to Abdulmanap and how much he wants to, make him proud, like win for him. And then you have Khabib, who's like arguably, the greatest lightweight of all time, who's his brother, who's training him now, who's now taken the mantle up because Abdulmanap died. Khabib won. He retired undefeated. And you know that Abdulmanap's dream was for Khabib to retire undefeated and then you become the world champion, because it's the ultimate validation of his coaching. And I try to think about that, like, I try to think about the pressure that would be, like, and how much of a driver that would be every day in practice. But no matter what you do in practice, no matter how much you train, no matter what holes you fix, no matter what, at the end of the day, what it's going to come down to, it's going to come down to you and another man who's fighting for something equally important to them, locked in a fucking cage, and you're going to fight. You're going to fucking fight for it. And fucking think about that. Like, I know that there are a lot of people who don't. It depends on how you see your life, if you can really understand. Like, are you, if we were in a simulation, are you just one of these drones that's walking around? Like, does your life mean anything? Does it matter to you whether your life means anything? Like, if you get a good job and you make $300K a year and your family's happy and that's a wrap, you live to 85, like, are you good with that? Or have the circumstances of your life created a much broader narrative where your success is not just your success? It's the success of someone else that you are so grateful to that words can't really even capture it. And imagine if you lost. Like, imagine in that situation if you lost. In Islam Makhachev's situation, imagine if he lost. And then try to imagine the stakes when he fights. You know, for him and for Khabib. And it's like, fuck, man. It's just the best sport ever. It's the best. You can't get that in tennis, man. Like, you can't get, I know tennis is one-on-one. Oh, you know, this legendary coach, his dream was for me to win Wimbledon. It's not the same, man. Because it's like the mix of all the things I'm talking about with like the most primal warfare human instincts that we have. Which brings me to Dilleshaw. Now, I probably should have told the Makhachev one second, because of course the Dilleshaw one is not going to compare at all to Makhachev's, because there isn't one. There's not a narrative in the sport that compares to Makhachev's. But Dilleshaw was the champion. He's a competitive little prick, right? He's a spaz. There's plenty to not like about him. He's competitive to the point where it makes him unlikable. I guarantee you that lots of people, we already know, lots of people at Team Alpha Male said that. I saw a video of him punching a dude after the, and he hit him afterward. Like, he's a hyper competitive spaz, but he's great. He's great. He's not good. He's great. And he was the champion. He's the world champion. And he cheats, right? Like, he rolls, talk about rolling the dice. He cheated. Now, who knows if he was cheating his whole career? It's irrelevant for this conversation. He gets caught, right? Red-handed. The first person I've ever heard of to piss hot for EPO, where you're like, Jesus, bro. Are you fucking serious? It's like the equivalent of like, racing in a fucking, NASCAR race. And they're like, all right, no nitrous. And you're like, all right, he said no nitrous. And you just pack your shit with nitrous and you're like, I'm the champion. Fuck all of you. Fuck you. Nitrous to the gills. No one knows. It's the dirtiest shit ever that he did that, right? Now, I don't know enough about EPO to know, like, he's cutting to 125. If there's any validity to, like, I was getting my levels and I did this I have no idea if that's true. I just know that EPO makes you never get tired. And it, to me, feels extraordinarily cheating, right? But he knows that he's popped dirty. Like, he knows he's smoked, caught, right? And he owns it. Now, if I wanted to take this video in a direction that I normally would, I would read that fucking ridiculous statement that his team put out. It sounded like someone from 1492 fucking wrote it. It's absurd. The dumbest shit ever. Anybody who watches Mixed Molly's stuff consistently will know exactly what I'm talking about. Literally, like, it's embarrassing. Look up Dillashaw's team EPO statement from right after he got caught. It's ludicrous. But he owns it. I mean, he has to. He knows he's popped. Like, there's no contaminated meat with fucking EPO in it, dude. He's smoked. He knows it. But he owns it. And the entire MMA community, every single journalist, every single fighter, everyone is like, fuck you, bud. EPO? Are you fucking serious? Fucking EPO? Whether they say it on camera or not, here's one thing and I'll just sideline this real quick. One of the reasons why I think my channel is starting to do well is because other analysts will filter themselves because they know they're going to like see these guys, right? Like they're going to see them. They're going to interact with them and they don't want to make them mad. And I know this now because now all these fucking guys have seen at least one or two of my videos. And so now I'm thinking about that like, Jesus. But I just decided like, I'm not gonna change the way that I talk about this shit. I'm just not going to. I'm just gonna say the things that I think, period. But like a lot of people would temper themselves, right? Like they're like, well, TJ cheated and blah, blah, blah. But TJ knows that behind the scenes, all of them are like, fuck that guy, dude. Fuck that fucking guy. So no matter what they say, even if they go easy on him in the media, he knows all of them are like, fuck that cheater, right? And he gets suspended for 2 years. 2 fucking years. 2 fucking years, dude. That is not a small amount of time, dude. That's not a small amount of time. 1 year in a fight as a fighter, that you can get by that. 2 years is a different fucking animal. That's a long time off, dude. Especially when you're being forced out. Now, psychologically, think about being in that position. Like, think about knowing that every single person thinks that about you, okay? Now, I understand TJ Dilleshaw. I understand fucking everyone, but I understand TJ Dilleshaw's mindset, which is why he's so impressive, because even knowing that everyone thought that, it didn't affect his ability to train and try to get better, stay sharp, and just wait 2 years to come back and take what was his. Like, I don't think people can really, if you don't have the thing that I'm talking about, where you really understand people, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do a good job explaining this, but most people would break under that. The vast majority of people would break under that. And I'm not talking break like it would appear outwardly that they broke. I'm talking about they would train, but they would never be able to shake that off in the back of their mind. And when they came back, they'd fucking lose. And they would definitely not win a fucking fight like that. Okay, so when I say they would break, I don't mean like their life would completely fall apart. I mean they wouldn't come back sharp. And I mean that at the very least, they wouldn't come back sharp enough to beat Cory fucking Sandhagen. And they would lose. And it would be because of the mental, the emotional crushing weight of knowing how everybody views you. All these guys are about legacy, man. Like, I know, believe me, I know before you put in the comments, I thought legacy doesn't matter. These guys are just about, money. I thought it's just about money. Okay. Are we going to split hairs here? It's about money sometimes. Other times it's about your legacy still matters, right? Like your legacy matters. It is a huge thing for a lot of guys. Certainly for TJ, for a lot of guys. And you knowing that your legacy is now painted with you're a cheater and everyone wants you to lose. That's the other thing, dude. That everyone wants you to lose. And so when you're training, if you're not built like TJ, you're training knowing everyone wants me to lose. Now, this is actually not as uncommon as I'm making it out, but there is a certain type of person that ends up being extraordinarily successful who takes that right there and their entire life is about proving people wrong. Fuck you. Oh, you want me to lose? You think I just won because of fucking EPO? Fuck you. I'll train every day for 2 fucking years and I'll come back and I'll break everyone's faces and take back what's mine. Fuck you. Fuck you. And they think about it every day in the gym. They got their headphones on, fucking hitting the bag. They're training. Their eyes are this big. You look at them in the gym and you're like, damn, this fucking guy's locked in. And they look like that every time they're in there. And people who don't understand, people who are in there as a hobby, they look over at that guy and they're like, gosh, man, I don't know about that guy. That guy's crazy. No, he's not. Nope. That's a man that's fucking wired for combat and wired to be great. And not everybody who's wired like that can be great. There are a lot of other factors. But the fucking guy in the gym with his eyes this big, listening to music, visualizing his life, being driven by things like that, I fucking love that shit. And so TJ, if he was someone else, would have been broken by this. Broken. Okay? And he came back sharp. Sharp enough to win a fucking, an absolute grit slugfest with potentially, the top 4 guy in the bantamweight division, insanely dangerous, who split TJ's fucking face open, which actually I think ended up hurting Sandhagen. I'll talk about that when I talk about the fight, if you still want to hear about it. But he fought through punishment, dude. He got mashed in that fight, TJ did. And he walked him down the whole entire fight. No breaks, never got tired. The whole fight was fuck EPO. The whole entire fight was him, fuck EPO. You think I need fucking EPO? Fuck you. Fuck you. And I'm not making excuses about him fucking doing EPO, in case that's what this sounds like. I think it's demonstrative. Demonstrative? I don't even know if that's a fucking word that's appropriate. I have no idea where that came from. It's gross though. That kind of I'm not down with it. But people make decisions and then they live with the repercussions. And what I'm about is I'm about the humanity, and I want to see what somebody's fucking made out of. And going in and winning a fight is always impressive. But when you add that extra shit on it, like that really heavy extra shit that really only exists in the fucking fight game. You can go out, you can lose a match in tennis, dude. You can go through the same thing and you can come out in the US Open and you can lose your opening round and you still can go and win in fucking Wimbledon. You can lose 3 tournaments in a row in the first round and then you can still go win the Australian Open and everyone's like, wow, you're a fucking hero. You lose in fighting, you're fucking done, dude. You can't afford losses. There are very few losses you can afford. And TJ 100% could not afford a fucking loss here. And he fought through incredible adversity in the fight and outside the cage. And if you can't get past that he cheated and respect this performance for what it actually was, not for what he did over those 5 rounds, but what it represented, what he overcame, then you'll never understand the sport the way that I do. You just won't. And like I said, I wish I could fucking ball it and give it to everyone. This is my best, attempt. Is trying to share what this sport actually is. I'm not even gonna say what it is to me, because this is what it actually is. And there are some people who can see it, and there are some people who can't. And I'm trying to give you bifocals so you can see what is actually happening in this sport that you watch. People's fucking life is on the line all the time. Every fucking day in the gym. Because if they skip that day in the gym, they'll skip the next day. And when they go in the cage, when their life is on the line, they'll fucking lose. Their life's on the line all the time. All the time. If they're at the elite level and they're really making a run at this, and what their life represents is this dream, this fucking unfathomable dream. That life is on the line every single fucking day. And then you put it on top of it, the shit like I talked about with Islam Makhachev, and you try to just wrap your brain around that pressure. Or let's talk past tense about things that have already happened. You take Khabib, right? Who's undefeated. His dad dies of COVID, like very unexpectedly. He's in grief beyond what anybody can even understand. Like, you know, when you lose a parent, it's the worst thing ever. But if you lose a parent like that, it's not just a person who's like, you know, raised you when you were a kid and then kind of like, you know, gave you money to go to college and gave you some good advice. I mean, everybody loves their parent. But think about Khabib's life with his dad. Like, his dad's his best friend, the person that he respects more than anyone in the world. He owes everything of what he is as a man to his dad. And he spent all of his time there with his dad. His dad was a part of every facet of his life. And his dad dies of fucking COVID. And then he doesn't pull out of the fight. He stays in the fight against Gaethje. I know in hindsight, everyone's just kind of like, well, he beat Gaethje pretty easily. Going into that fight, Gaethje was definitely the most dangerous guy he'd ever fought, stylistically. Gaethje was a fucking nightmare matchup, what it looked like. There are a lot of people that picked Gaethje over Khabib because Gaethje had never really been successfully taken down. And so what are you going to do if you're stuck on your feet with fucking Gaethje? I'll tell you exactly what would have happened. Gaethje would have won. People are acting like, Khabib was crushing him on the feet. Khabib took leg kicks that if he took another round of leg kicks were going to hobble any human being on earth. Okay, so like the matchup was very dangerous stylistically. And Khabib's performance in that fight was like, he just fucking walked him down. Like, he just walked him down. He's fighting with the weight of his father's legacy on his back. And he fucking walks down Justin Gaethje. Takes those shots, pretends they don't hurt, and goes out there and not only submits him, takes mercy on him because he didn't want to break his arm. So he does an inverted triangle because he's his teammate. They're both with Dominance MMA. And you think about that, like, you think about the danger that Khabib put himself in physically, but mostly what that legacy meant to his father that he just lost. Him, retiring undefeated. I feel fucking ridiculous sometimes talking about stuff like this about other people's like family because I don't, this is all candidly, this like the stuff about his dad and that he wanted him to retire 29-0 and all that. This is all me like hearing this stuff secondhand. So I tread lightly when I say specifics, but that his dad had poured his entire life into turning Khabib into what he was, the greatest lightweight of all time. His whole entire life was around building Khabib. Parenting, the only thing that you should be thinking about as a parent, for new parents and shit, actually for current parents. Like, again, I told you, I am utterly incompetent at a million different things. Fucking incompetent. Like, I'm not saying that just, let me, give myself a jab before I give myself a compliment. I'm utterly like a fucking retard. Like an actual certified retard with stuff like But again, I know people. And that is a gift when it comes to raising children. And the thing is, like, the only thing that you should be thinking about as a parent is what every action that you take with your kid is going to have a result on how they turn out. Everything. And the only thing you should be thinking about is what kind of adult am I going to create with this? Like what is the adult version of this child going to be if I do this? Because nothing impacts what your kids turn into more than what you give them. You're a god to them. You dictate whether they eat, whether they drink, what they think about everything. You giving them emotional support versus not giving them emotional support will create a completely different adult. You validating every feeling that they have. They cry and you every time tell me why you're upset will create a weak, sorry ass adult that will think that their emotions are what matters in the world, and they'll learn the hard way that they fucking don't. And they'll never learn that actually. They'll actually never learn that. And it'll be your fucking fault. Your fault. And you want to know why that happened? Because you think that your emotions are the most important thing. That your empathy, if you're operating off of empathy, then you're doing the right thing. And that's fucking not true. That's not true. Empathy in many cases is a good thing. But when it comes to your kids, if you're feeling empathetic towards them and so you just give them what they want, that's you being a coward because it makes you feel better. It'll make you feel better because they're not sad anymore. But you need to be able to do the fucking hard thing when you're a parent. You need to think about what your kid is going to turn into if you do this. And Khabib's dad's entire life was turning Khabib into what he was. And what he was is not all, of course not all, but his identity globally in the vision of who he was going to be as a man was a world champion that was undefeated. An undefeated world champion. And a few months after he died, Khabib put all of that on the line. After he had mumps too. He put all that on the line. He risked all of it. He could have easily pulled out of that fight and no one would have said a thing. And he rolled the dice. Because I really don't like speculating for people when it comes to this kind of thing. But I like to think that he thought that he would have wanted him to take the fight, to stay in. That may or may not be true. But either way, he stayed in. And you go back and you watch that performance again. Watch that fight again. Like, watch it again and think about that. Think about what was on the line for him in that fight. And then look at how he performed. Fuck, man. It's just the best sport ever. It just is. It's the best fucking sport ever. And most guys, they get to the end of their career and it doesn't end well for almost any of them. Literally for almost any of them. And some of them get to the end of their career and they start looking around for someone to blame. That is why I went so hard on Diego initially. You know, when all this Fabia shit started that turned into some other fucking thing that I just used to make people laugh. But if you really watch my early videos about that, where I was fucking hammering Diego, that's why. Because that's what he did. And it cheapens the entire fucking thing for everyone else. Like, what they're doing matters. You're chasing an impossible dream. And it probably won't end the way that you want it to. That's the fucking deal you make. When you make that choice, it's not going to work out for you most likely, but you're willing to roll the dice on everything for the chance that you could beat the odds and get everything that you want. And the only way that you made the wrong decision is at the end of your career, when things didn't quite get there for you, you fucking blame someone else for it. It invalidates the entire thing. It invalidates your entire career because now your journey was not a meaningful, pursuit of a dream bigger than yourself. It was something that you were doing, and the UFC tricked you into it. Because if you want to invalidate your own dream, do whatever the fuck you want. But you don't get to invalidate every other person's dream that's still chasing it just because your fucking ride is over. Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck that. I felt bad for Diego afterwards, but every time I think about that, look, I realize I'm not going to get into the Fabia shit, but fuck that, dude. But again, I don't think most people even understand what this fucking sport is and what it is if you really actually look at it. Like, look at it for real. Like, look at these guys. These aren't like cartoon characters. These aren't fucking guys like from a movie. These are actual people. They're living real lives. The choices that they make matter. The implications are, they don't get bigger. And that's why when I talk about Masvidal and Colby, and I imagine that they're faking the beef, because I would pretty much bet my life on it. If Colby beats Usman, okay? If Colby fucking beats Usman and those two guys end up fighting for the belt, Jesus. Man. If Colby pulls that off and those two guys end up fighting for the belt, both of them making millions of dollars, and you think about where those two guys started, like living together, and a lot of people haven't ever had, I mean, this is the thing, the reason why their story is so like, especially right there for me, is because I have lived in that environment. Like, I've lived in that exact environment, minus the impossible dream that me and my best friend are chasing. I lived with my best friend for fucking 7 years. Okay, from my junior year of college, my sophomore year of college, I lived with this guy for 7 fucking years. My best friend, my heterosexual life partner. We only ended up like separating because Gabrielle moved in, and I knew I was going to marry her, and he was just like, you know, he felt like I was fucking breaking up with him. But like, I know exactly what their life was. I know exactly what their life was. And I know exactly what it feels like to chase an impossible dream, because I've done both of those things. And so I know exactly where they were at. And these guys were living in small quarters, barely able to make rent. Like, they make some money, go out. Like, these guys are fighting for fucking 10 grand to fight, whatever. Like, you think that, like, I know people here, oh, he made $25,000. And they're like, whoa, oh, so he's got, you know, he's doing well. It's like, is he? $25,000? He's got to pay his trainer, whatever to do. Now he's got 20 grand. He pays taxes. Cool. He got 12. You understand how fast 12 fucking grand goes? If you aren't going to fight again for another like 4, 5, 6 months. Does that sound like a lot of money now? $2,000 every month? And that's if you get another fight in 6 months? And you got to, I mean, they're living on fucking ramen noodles and shit. And they're talking about how they're going to conquer the world. There is no indication that they're going to be able to do that. None. Fucking none. Zero. Colby was a nobody. Masvidal, there was no, I mean, he was a popular-ish fighter, but he's bouncing around organizations. Like, he's never gone on a serious run where people were like, you know, like a serious run like he did, where they're like, you know, this guy is going to be a superstar. There was none of that at all. These two guys are sitting there plotting together an impossible dream. Fucking impossible dream. And they're like, we're going to do this together. And they train every single day. And they get home and they talk about training, and they talk about fighting, and they talk about where they're going to go together, and they visualize it together. And they talk about how they're going to be the first, you know, Colby's, I'm going to be the first guy that ever goes to the White House. Moss, I'm going to be the champion. Again, impossible dreams. And then when Colby gets to a point in his career where they're like, dude, you're boring. Like, you know, you're kind of boring. We're not really interested, whatever. He's like, dude, I got to do something to like, I don't know. I've been listening to Chael. He like, I think I'm just going to like adopt a character. And Masvidal like, do it, dude. Do it. Do it. Colby adopts a character. He sucks at it at first. It's almost like kind of funny. You're like, what is this guy doing? You know, what is he doing? Sticks with it. Just like I stuck with this. All you got to do is just decide you're going to fucking do something. Sticks with it. And all of a sudden people are starting to buy it. And they go, dude, why not create a beef? If they're going to buy all this shit, let's create a beef. Like, let's pretend like we hate each other. You know, I mean, we do media, what, like once a week? Like maybe like their life is not, that's the thing. People think that you have actual insight into these people's lives. You don't know shit about their fucking life. You know exactly what they give you when they choose to give it to you. That's why I think, people are like, oh, they couldn't fake it. Here's the whole thing again, for the 100th time. The reason I don't care about exposing this, first of all, I don't know for sure. But also because if you're actually listening to me and you get to this point, it makes it 1,000 times better if it's fake. 1,000 times better. A fucking million times better if it's fake. And I'm not sure if I've ever done a good enough job explaining that part. That like, if it's fake, it's 1 billion times better. Because they fabricate this beef. They make a decision. They're like, we could create a beef. We can make some hype for each other. They're helping each other. They're best friends. They're carrying each other through their entire careers together. They're best friends. And the beef with Dustin and Masvidal, all these guys, the more the world buys it, the more it bonds them together. That's what people don't seem to get, man. It's like, the more, I don't know how to even say it better. It is like the ultimate, the more people believe it, the more it bonds them in the foxhole that they're the only ones that know. It's their secret. The people at American Top Team know, and they'll help out where they can. Dan Lambert will say whatever. I don't know this, but I speculate that what actually happened and why Colby really left American Top Team is I think the stuff he said in Brazil, really, there are a lot of Brazilian fighters at American Top Team. And I saw Colby say in an interview one time that the Brazilians didn't want to train with him anymore. And so what I actually think is that he was asked to leave American Top Team because the Brazilians were very upset with him. And it ended up just kind of playing into the beef that him and Masvidal were pretending to have, because I'm speculating. I have no idea if that's accurate. But I know that people like Dan Lambert and and Joanna and Jacek would pretend like this beef's real. But the bottom line is this: impossible dream, a fucking impossible dream. And then if they pull it off, and when they're in that octagon together, it doesn't matter who wins. It makes no difference. They have won together. It's irrelevant who wins. Completely fucking irrelevant. You never could think, and the reason why it's so special is you could never think of a scenario where two fighters could win together. It's not possible, right? It doesn't seem possible. And this is that. This is the only time ever where two fighters who are fighting each other won together. They beat everyone and they fucking made it. They did all of the things they said they were going to do. And from there, it doesn't matter anymore. Just doesn't matter. None of it fucking matters. They won together. Anyway, I've been talking long enough. I love this fucking sport, man. Anyway, so yeah, this is what I'm actually like. So, anyway, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Peace.